Hello everyone, Simon here with a review of Freakout Calamity TV show. Freakout, as I call it from here on in, is a top-down twin-stick shooter available for PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch and PC. It's an exceptionally misbalanced and bug-ridden game, and I do not recommend it in its current guise, and probably never in its future guise either. There isn't tons to love, and I'm going to be quite harsh. But I will explain my actions as I do so that I can kind of give you a balanced review, because I think some people might actually still get some fun with this, but certainly wasn't me. Freakout kind of bases its story and its premise on... Do you remember the late 80s film The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it? I love that film, one of my all-time favourites. And instead of pitting you against other contestants in a TV show and seeing who survives at the end, and you've got to kill everyone else, it's just about waves of zombies. The story itself is one of the highlights of the game, and is crazy and silly all at the same time, and at least gives the game some character, which it's sorely lacking, because throughout the 19 levels that it's got, the first 14 or so all feel nigh on identical in terms of its layout, aesthetic, and what you do and don't do. There's a large prominence of grey metal across this entire game, and it doesn't do anything with its top-down twin-stick shooting mechanics outside of just pitting you every couple of levels with a new type of enemy, except you don't really treat any of them any differently. You just shoot and run, or back away, essentially. The thing with this is that you could kind of go, okay, that's all that they were looking for, but then for the last 3 or 4 levels of the game, it's like the game wakes up, and it has like a pinball style level, and then there's like a retro like running, avoiding like the booby trap level, and then the end bosses remind me of Snake and so on like that, and I was like, oh, it's got personality, it's got ideas, it wants to do things. But it saved it for the last 20 minutes of the whole experience, and it's all jam-packed into like a really good 20-minute section. The other few hours beforehand are absolutely mind-numbing. So that's what I mean when I say that this game is horrifically off balance. It's also crammed full of bugs and slowdown. There's a section in this game, where you go into a office space. But the office space is entirely destructible, so you can shoot through walls and blow up desks and things like that, and that could look really, really good. Except the game can't cope. It slows down to about 10 FPS maximum, and it's like already janky on the eyes before you begin because the game is slow and feels sluggish. That then makes it worse. But what makes it even worse is that it's also dropping frames. So bullets disappear and reappear in front of you. Your inputs into the controllers are really laggy. And you have this issue throughout the game, but in the office space environments, it's even worse because it can't cope with the destruction that's going on around it because there's so many moving pieces. It also doesn't help that in these levels, which are quite narrow, you've got hordes of enemies flying out of enemy elevators. And so it's trying to render like 25 zombies flying at you alongside like destruction of desks everywhere. But you can't avoid doing one and the other because they all just kind of fly at you at the same time, and you're just holding down shoot and hoping for the best, which is essentially what you do for most of this game. Outside of that, the game also runs into problems with bugs. Now, I should try and insert some footage at the appropriate time now, but at the end of the first chapter there's a boss, which when you defeat, there's a story element where you basically break out of the arena and try and get out of the TV show. Except there is a collision detection problem, which basically determines that when you exit the arena, you've fallen off of the level and died, and therefore it's game over. And so it would respawn you again under the level. You can't then kill the boss because the boss is already dead and it won't respawn. And so you're stuck, essentially, and the camera is fixed at a certain point. I'd get different variants of this. So sometimes the boss would respawn, but the camera would be stuck. And so you're trying to like beat it again, but you're still stuck and you can't move off, and you're going to die again and again and again. I spent about an hour trying to get past this like end cutscene, and it would just keep respawning me. So I tweeted the developer, no response. And I think that's a real shame, because I said, you've sent me this game to review, I cannot review it because it is so buggy I can't actually pass the first chapter. And I toyed with the idea of just releasing a little review saying that, but that didn't seem fair. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it some time and I'll come back. The game was released on the 17th of April. I'm recording this on the 3rd of May. This has still not been fixed. I was able to, by pure luck, guess where I was supposed to go to trigger the next phase. But my goodness, it was ridiculous. And the fact that this is still here to this day essentially blocks you from being able to clear most of the rest of the game. Not that you necessarily want to play it anyway, because it's so buggy, full of slowdown, dropping frames, uninspired. The soundtrack is alright. And there are some nice little power-ups that can try and help you out here and there, but that's about it. I also struggled with some of the two-player couch co-op stuff. Essentially, when there's two players, there's twice as many bullets, and there's twice as much for the game to render, and so it slows down even further. So we gave up with that, and I just continued on as a single player, rummaging through the game, wondering when it would end. The game is a relatively easy platinum. You'll have to play the game about 1 3/4 times. Take you probably about 5 hours-ish to get, if that's your thing. But it is just grinding through, getting some kills on some enemies. And the game feels a bit strange because some of the enemies only appear in one level and that's it. I.e. the pinball ball in the pinball level. So you'll just be replaying that same level over and over and over again, being bored to tears. So do I recommend Freakout Calamity TV show? Hell no. And it serves me as a bit of a reminder that sometimes a game can bite off more than it can chew, and sometimes that's not a good thing. Maybe it should stay within its box. But also, if you're going to invest so much energy and inventiveness, that's a word now, in its final chapter, you need to make sure that that is consistent throughout, because the last chapter of this game is so much better than the rest of it that comes before it. It makes it look like you didn't care about the rest. And as a player, I feel even more frustrated because you could see how wide of the mark this game was compared to what it could have been if it had had more time in development to be A, stable, B, bug-free, or less buggier, and C, have that same level of ingenuity applied across the board. So there we go. Freakout. It's out now if you want it. You guys take care. Bye-bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a collection of media projects ran by me. If you like what you see and want to find out more, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support can make so much more possible, be that a like, a comment, a share, or a pledge. Thanks for watching.